Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have Katie Allred with us, and she is the author of several different books in regards to social media. And I believe you're the co-founder of Church Communications. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, it's great to have you with us, Katie. I just want to ask you, just kind of start. Can you kind of tell people about your background? How in the world did you get into all this? What do you do now?
Yeah, so it's kind of been a journey, right? I got into social media before social media existed. Back in 1999, I was in an online forum for Harry Potter fans, and I really came to love it and understand online community and understand that I wanted to share the gospel through the internet. And that was at a really young age. I was only 9 in 1999, so I'm dating myself a little bit. I'm a Taylor Swift baby, so yeah, born at the same around the same time. So but yeah, I think like the internet was a big part of it. And then just growing from there, I went to school to study computer science because digital marketing wasn't a thing quite yet. So that's always really difficult, is like when the thing you want to do doesn't exist or isn't like
Yep.
really defined quite yet. Uh and so I went there thinking that's what I wanted to study, because marketing at that time was like magazine ads and newspaper ads and things like that. And I wasn't exactly interested in those things quite yet. And so I wanted to figure out the internet, really. And so I ended up getting a master's in web development, and I loved web design, and I really thought that was the thing for me. I still do it because it's something I enjoy, but it's not like my main thing. And then I went to work at a mega church, and that's where I got really into it for 5 years. And I did social media and web development at that church. It grew from like 1 to 8 campuses in like a 2 year span. So it grew really quickly. And so during that time, I had to learn how to like scale, and also had to manage so many different social presences, because a lot of churches, when they grow campuses, they're like streaming campuses, right? So it's the same pastor. But these churches were different. Each one had their own pastor, they had their own congregation, they had their own thing. So very different in comparison to what a lot of people typically face, where they have just one, right? And
Mhm.
so yeah, so that's kind of where I like began to really learn that like churches needed help with this.
Mhm.
I always kind of felt called to that, because I didn't really know where I fit, right, in the church, but I knew I wanted to work in church. And so when I found communication, it felt like the right fit. So I started the group, because I was like, surely I'm not the only one doing this, the church communications group. And there's got to be other people who want to complain about making a bulletin every week. Um, this was, 2015. So
Yeah.
before 2020, when everybody canceled their bulletins. But yeah, so I thought I found like 50 people, and I found 1,000 really quickly. And then I ended up like, we're at like 33,000. And yeah, God's really blessed it, and it's been a really great source of information for a lot of people. And I mean, honestly, like, I didn't really want it to be about me. I created it because I was frustrated that it didn't exist. It's so funny because like I wrote the book on church communication, and literally, and
Yeah.
I think it's funny that like I didn't do it because I think I'm an expert at it, like by any means. I definitely just did it because I was mad that it didn't already exist. So, um, yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. And then that led me to, I was a professor for a few years, a really sharp turn there.
Yeah.
And I taught software development and I taught marketing at a university. And then I ended up at Meta for a couple of years doing faith partnerships there and doing community partnerships, working with Facebook groups. And now I do church communications full time. So yeah, it's quite the weave to get there. But I think that overall you can kind of see the thread that like God had placed in my life from the very beginning to work on the internet and help people share the gospel online.
Awesome. Well, and yeah, and like you're saying, such a new medium that everybody's trying to catch up to kind of what's going on, and uh, I, especially for small churches, it's such a challenge. What are some ways small churches, that they can develop their social media presence as an outreach tool?
Yeah. So first off, I feel like I need to tell small churches that they don't have to be on every social media platform.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to want to do that because everybody else is doing, or like a bigger church is doing that, right? But they have like 20 people on staff that are just for that, just for that specific thing. And so I think going deep into one platform is probably the best bet for you, whether that is Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. I think going all into one platform is the best bet. But when it comes to outreach, I think that we get social media wrong a lot of times. So we kind of use it as a billboard or a place to just place our events, or hey, the building's closed today because it snowed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but really, I think social media as a place to create a relationship with someone. It's social media in the first place, right? And so we often forget the social part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how can we create better relationships? I mean, honestly, it's like creating relationships in real life. You have to show up, you have to be consistent, you have to ask questions, you have to engage with people. If you're having a conversation, it's only one way, it's kind of boring, right? And so, how can we create content that invites other people into the conversation? And I think oftentimes that is there. And like, what does that mean? That seems like a really lofty statement. Like practically, I think that means creating content that's sharing stories of what God is doing in the lives of your people, because your people are the church. The church are the people. A lot of times I think we forget that. I think we think like the church is the building and the pastor. And that's just not it, right? And I think a lot of times we get scared of sharing more than just what the past than just sermon clips,
Mm-hmm.
social media. And not that so sermon clips aren't good. I definitely think that they are. I think and not that they can't share the gospel, but I think that like what people really want is to look and find someone who looks and talks like them.
Mm-hmm.
Who is also a teacher like them, who is also a mechanic like them, and see that they belong in a certain space instead of like a pastor with a suit on who they can't relate to, right? Because they're not living that life. And like the majority of the people in our churches are not, in the pastorate or working at the church. So I think we need to get back to my pastor. The pastor I used to work at, the church I used to work at, he used to say the first Reformation is about giving the word back to the people, but the second Reformation is going to be about giving the ministry back to the people.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this is a small part of that, like having featuring different people on your social media. And so practically, again, what does it look like? I think it's like just going up to people and asking them questions and asking if they can be recorded, asking if maybe you can share. Humans of New York does a great job of this, of sharing people's lives without necessarily sharing exactly who they are, even if it's just a picture of their hands or a favorite picture of theirs from when they were younger or something, that shares a little bit of their story so that people can relate. I do love when people will share and like have that face to face, because again, Facebook is Facebook. So I think having more faces is good. When they will, not everybody will do that, but I think having that makes it just so much more vulnerability is power. I think obviously that's a Brene Brown thing, but also like vulnerability was something that was taken from us in Genesis 3, and I think like helping to restore that is a redemptive thing. So being vulnerable online helps people get invited into the story as well.
Awesome. What are some suggestions for small churches with limited budgets to strengthen their online marketing presence?
Yeah, so what's funny is that I wouldn't say the church I was working at had a limited budget by any means, but I didn't really have one. I didn't have a budget.
Yeah,
And so I was
non-existent.
really having to figure it all out on my own. So I understand, like, it wasn't like I was given a dollar number, like you have $100. So there's a few different things you can do. Of course, you can get Canva for nonprofits. That is free. There's a social media scheduling tool now inside of that. So you can create graphics and do social media through that. The Meta Business Suite is fantastic. There's great ways to create content and then share content through that platform. And then two, like outside of the box, like using some of these newer AI tools, I think is going to be really great. Chat GPT. You can go to YouTubetranscript.com, I think, pull the transcript of your YouTube video, pop it into Chat GPT, ask it to come up with, 5 quotes or whatever, come up with questions that you can share on social media about the sermon. Yeah, like there's a lot of different new ways, and that's pretty cheap. Like ChatGPT, you could do that with the free version. You could also pay the $20 a month for the paid one. I don't know if it's necessary for that type of content to pay for it. So yeah, I think that would be a easy way. Another way you can get, I think, more bang for your buck is to you can apply for the Google ad grant. This is a little different from social media necessarily, but people are searching. Back in the day, when you and I had questions in the 90s, we had to go and ask somebody who was an expert in that field.
Yeah.
There was just no, like, I used to just go around wondering about, like, what was that leaf, and now today we can ask the most existential questions of our lives to Google, which is just insane, and we don't know what Google is going to give us, right? And we have so many more experts than we've ever had access to in our lives. So I think that Google would prefer to give like local answers when it's possible, and to like your church can be that answer on Google. And so creating content around that on your website, I think, is really important, whether that is just putting like I said, you could grab the transcript from YouTube. Like, you don't have to pay for a transcript or like transcription service necessarily anymore. You can grab that transcript and then put it into ChatGPT and say, write a blog post, and then post that blog post to your website. And then that's more content, because Google needs content to crawl, right? But then you can also use that page as something, as like a felt need page. Maybe people are going through a divorce and you have this blog that you based on a sermon that was about divorce or whatever. You can then send those Google keywords through that to this page, and have a place where people can land and have a call to action of join our divorce care group or whatever that is going on at the church. So there's a lot of little differences. I know that was kind of complicated. A lot of churches, though, you can outsource. Like I said, you can get the Google ad grant. It's like $10,000 a month for free. You can apply and do that yourself. You can also hire a team if you want to. That's pretty cheap, I think, to manage those Google AdWords for you.
Awesome. So, for church leaders who are learning how to use social media, what are some great resources out there to teach them how to use social media? Because for some people, it's like it's a foreign entity. It's their. So, what would be some good teaching resources?
Yeah, well, I do think our Facebook group is pretty good. So,
Yes.
if you haven't joined the Church Communications Facebook group, come and join us. I do think we have lots of people who are willing to answer your questions, but there's lots of good content on there that's posted every day that people are sharing of, I did this, I did that. We did write a book, Instagram posts that worked. And it's a few years old now, but it does have a lot of good content and copy that kind of helps people with that. My book also has a few chapters, or a chapter on social media with a few different sections on different social platforms and ideas of how you can engage people. So if you're interested in that, I do think we explore it a little bit more in depth in there. And then yeah, I think other, like, honestly, so I'm like writing a 400 level, a senior level course right now at Belmont that I'm teaching social media planning and management. And
Mm.
we don't have a textbook. I'm really just pulling links from the internet. And what's so funny is that, yeah, I mean, I think you can get that good of an education often from, but like curating those things, I think is really hard. So some trusted resources I feel like are Hootsuite. I think Hootsuite does a great job. And then I think Sprout Social has some really great information. The Social Media Examiner
Mm-hmm.
has some. So just keeping up with those kind of blogs, I think do a great job. There are YouTubers out there. I don't really, I feel like I don't know. I'm not a YouTuber myself. It's so funny because like this is probably going on YouTube. I technically am a YouTuber, I guess, because Church Comp does have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are some pretty good resources if you like reading, like myself. If you don't like
Mhm.
reading, if you like watching, I think Brady Shear has some really great information as well. And then there's so many other voices that are similar. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this conversation blessed you and you got some great information. And Katie, thank you again. I appreciate you taking part in this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And can I let people know where they can connect with me?
That's what I was going to ask next. You got on me. It was like we're in sync.
What? It's like
Yeah.
podcast crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if you want to connect with me, you can do that at katieallred.com. It's all red, like I'm turning all red.com. And then you go to church communications with an s.com, and you can join the church communications Facebook group that way, or you can read our blogs and find more resources and stuff like that. You can pick up my book, churchcommunications.com, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Lifeway.com if you want. And yeah, I'd love to connect with you. So you can follow me on Instagram, KDJ Allred, because I have to be a little bit different on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so yeah, if you need me, you can follow me on there, send me a DM. I'd love to talk with you and help you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Your book is great. I've read it like twice already. It's enjoyable and it's helpful. The church communications one, because like you said, there isn't anything out there. And when your book came out, I was so stoked. I said, finally, there's something there. And it's so helpful. So I would highly recommend anyone who's watching. I highly recommend to read it. So thank you, Katie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.